Imagine standing in a city where silence feels heavier than air. The streets are clean, the faces expressionless, and the air carries the faint echo of marching songs broadcast from distant loudspeakers. You hear laughter once, brief, nervous, fragile, and then nothing. It dies as quickly as it was born, swallowed by the weight of an entire nation that has forgotten how to laugh freely. This is North Korea, a place where even a smile must be politically correct, and laughter, one of humanity's simplest joys, can become a dangerous act. In the capital, Pyongyang, everything has a rhythm. People move with purpose, with invisible choreography guided by rules no one dares to question. The morning begins with patriotic music flowing through speakers mounted on lampposts. The melodies are cheerful, yet the faces below remain serious. There's something eerie about the way happiness is broadcast, but never lived. In this world, laughter is not spontaneous. It's scheduled, rehearsed, and controlled. To understand what happens when you laugh in North Korea, you must first understand what laughter means there. It is not a reaction, it is a signal of loyalty when directed toward the leader's jokes, a signal of suspicion when it bursts out of place. There is no such thing as casual humor in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Every smile, every chuckle, every smirk carries meaning, and meaning here can be fatal. Imagine being in a cinema in Pyongyang. The room is dark. Rows of citizens sit upright, facing the screen. A patriotic film plays, soldiers fighting, mothers sacrificing, leaders saving the day. When the leader appears, the audience claps in unison. It's not spontaneous. It's expected. There are moments when the film tries to be humorous, perhaps a soldier tripping over his gun, or a child singing the wrong lyrics to a patriotic song. But the laughter that follows is orchestrated. It rises together, then stops together, like a switch being turned off. A few seconds too early or too late could make you stand out. And in North Korea, standing out is never safe. Foreign visitors sometimes describe feeling as though they've stepped into a parallel reality, one where emotion itself is filtered through ideology. One tourist recalled attending a theatrical performance in Pyongyang. It was a musical filled with color and energy, and at one point an actor made a genuinely funny mistake. The audience froze. Only after the performer quickly corrected himself and continued with patriotic fervor did the crowd resume their synchronized clapping. It was a chilling reminder that laughter here must always serve the state, never the self. Laughter, by its nature, is uncontrollable. It breaks rules. It spreads. It unites. That's exactly why the regime fears it. True laughter creates a bond between people that bypasses authority. It's a shared language of humanity, and in North Korea, where the regime must remain the only bond that exists, that is dangerous. In a society built on surveillance, every reaction is observed. The country's security network extends into workplaces, schools, even families. There are neighborhood watch units known as Inminban, whose members report unusual behavior, like someone failing to weep enough during a state funeral or smiling too broadly at the wrong moment. These observations are written down, discussed, archived. A misplaced grin can become a report can become a warning, and a warning can lead to something far worse. There is an old saying whispered among defectors, "Even the sky must laugh for the leader." It reflects the twisted hierarchy of emotion in North Korea. Joy belongs to Kim. Sorrow belongs to the people. Citizens may laugh only when it glorifies him, and must cry when he commands it. During the mourning period for Kim Jong-il's death in 2011, the world saw a sea of citizens sobbing uncontrollably. But many of those tears were not born from grief, they were born from fear. Reports later surfaced of people being arrested for not crying enough. One man was allegedly sent to a labor camp after being overheard laughing with a friend during the official mourning period. The image of that man, his life destroyed by a simple laugh, captures the tragic absurdity of life under total control. It raises a haunting question. What happens when a human instinct becomes a crime? Inside classrooms, teachers instruct children on how to display emotion correctly. In propaganda lessons, students learn to smile when speaking about the great leader's generosity, to laugh when he tells a story, and to show solemn reverence when discussing the nation's sacrifices. It's a psychological conditioning that begins early and never ends. Over time, the boundary between real emotion and performance dissolves. People laugh because they must, not because they feel it. The result is a nation where joy has been hollowed out, where every laugh echoes against the walls of fear. Consider the paradox. North Korea calls itself the people's paradise, yet even the sound of joy must be rehearsed. During national parades, soldiers march with perfect precision, while citizens along the streets wave flags and cheer. The cheers are loud, but if you look closely, you'll notice that the faces rarely match the sound. Their eyes stay empty. It's as though the emotion has been stripped from the act, leaving only the noise of obedience. Foreign diplomats once recounted a curious detail from official banquets in Pyongyang. Between toasts, hosts would laugh heartily at their own jokes, but the laughter had a strange rhythm, uniform, short, practiced. It wasn't genuine amusement, but a performance designed to appear human to foreign guests. Behind that veneer there was tension, the constant awareness that someone might be listening, that every word, every chuckle might be recorded. Even private moments aren't truly private. In many apartment buildings, microphones are hidden within walls, and informants live among neighbors. It's why many families speak in whispers at home. Parents teach their children to be careful about what they say outside, because even a joke told at school can be interpreted as dissent. There are stories of children innocently repeating a funny line they overheard at home, only for their parents to disappear days later. In such a world, humor becomes poison. Still, laughter finds its way through cracks, even in the darkest places. In the secret markets known as Jangmadang, where people barter illegally for food and goods, quiet humor sometimes flickers between traders. They tell small jokes about shortages, about the absurdity of slogans, about the impossibility of daily life. But they do it softly, their faces carefully blank, their voices almost inaudible. It's a form of rebellion, tiny, fleeting, but real. These moments remind us that even under totalitarian rule, the human spirit seeks release. Imagine a man walking home from one of these markets at dusk. He carries a small bag of rice he bought illegally. Along the way, he meets an old friend and makes a quiet remark about how the leader's portrait seems to watch him even in the bathroom. They both laugh, briefly, nervously. It feels good, liberating even. But they stop almost instantly. The street is empty, but they know the walls have ears. One of them glances up at a loudspeaker pole, the other at a nearby window. Their smiles fade. The sound of laughter turns into the sound of fear. It's difficult for outsiders to comprehend the depth of psychological control that shapes life in North Korea. Over decades, laughter itself has been redefined. It's no longer an emotion, it's a signal of conformity. Public laughter belongs to the state, private laughter belongs to danger. Every human instinct has been categorized, measured, and disciplined. The result is a society where joy is rationed like food, distributed only when permitted. Even celebrations follow this pattern. At weddings, guests sing and dance, but the songs are patriotic. The joy must never appear to exceed loyalty to the regime. At birthdays, gifts often include portraits of the leaders or collections of their writings. The atmosphere is festive, yet always watchful. Someone always watches. To laugh freely in North Korea would mean breaking the illusion. And illusions are the foundation of the regime's survival. The people are told they live in a paradise protected from the rotten Western world, where citizens suffer moral decay. Laughter, especially at something unapproved, becomes symbolic. It's a crack in the story. A single uncontrolled moment can reveal the truth, that people are human, that fear isn't joy, and that obedience isn't happiness. That is why laughter is policed as tightly as speech. The regime understands something profound about human nature. Laughter is contagious, and what spreads uncontrollably threatens their control. They can command silence, but they cannot command joy. A defector once described the first time she laughed freely after escaping. It happened in a safe house in China while watching a comedy on television. At first, she covered her mouth, expecting punishment. When no one came, she began to cry. "It felt like I was breathing for the first time," she said. That moment, when laughter turned into tears, captures the psychological imprisonment of millions still inside. So what happens when you laugh in North Korea? The answer depends on where, when, and why. If it's at a political rally in response to a speech by the leader, it's expected. If it's at a funeral, or during the mourning of a national tragedy, it's a crime. If it's at a private joke mocking the regime, it can cost you your life. Laughter is both a weapon and a wound. It can liberate or destroy. This delicate balance shapes every interaction. Workers laugh at their supervisors' jokes to prove loyalty. Students laugh when teachers praise the nation's glory. Even television hosts laugh in rehearsed patterns, as though reading from an invisible script. The regime knows that emotion, when manipulated, can become the most effective propaganda tool. Outside observers often struggle to separate myth from reality in North Korea. But one truth remains consistent across testimonies. The people are not robots. They feel, they dream, they remember what it means to be human. Their laughter may be muted, but deep inside, they still yearn for the sound of freedom. It is this silent yearning that terrifies the regime most. Not bombs, not sanctions, but the uncontainable power of genuine emotion. The irony is haunting. The very thing that defines humanity, laughter, has become a symbol of resistance. Each forbidden laugh, no matter how small, carries within it the possibility of change. A whisper of rebellion, a heartbeat of life in a land that tries to suffocate it. If you listen closely, beyond the parades and the propaganda, beyond the cheers for the leader and the endless songs of devotion, you might hear it. A quiet laugh in the dark, a moment of courage disguised as joy. It doesn't last long, but it exists. And in a place where freedom itself is forbidden, that single laugh means everything. Because in North Korea, to laugh is to remember you are still human. Imagine waking up in a world where even your smile belongs to the government, where your laughter, your joy, your very expression of humanity is monitored, graded, and recorded. This is not metaphorical. In North Korea, joy is a matter of state security. There are no spontaneous bursts of humor in public parks, no comedians on late-night TV, no laughter echoing through cafes. The state has transformed an emotion into an instrument of control. Every morning begins with an announcement. Loudspeakers fixed to walls and poles burst to life before dawn. They broadcast news of the leader's latest achievements, instructions for citizens, warnings about external enemies. And occasionally, very occasionally, a story meant to elicit laughter. But even this laughter is strategic, constructed, ideological. The jokes are about foreigners, about the failures of America or South Korea. They are written to remind people that happiness exists only through the leader's benevolence. Humor here has been nationalized. It no longer belongs to the people, it belongs to the regime. There is a department of propaganda and agitation within the ruling Workers' Party that even controls comedic content. Comedians are state employees. Their scripts must be approved by censors before performance. A misplaced line, a misunderstood gesture, can lead to interrogation, so they make jokes that flatter the system. They mock inefficiency only when it highlights the wisdom of the leader. They laugh at hardship only when it demonstrates the people's resilience under socialism. It's theater, not comedy. In state television shows, laughter is a narrative tool, a way to signal what emotions the audience is allowed to feel. When the character representing a loyal worker succeeds, the laugh track plays. When a corrupt official fails, the laughter reminds citizens that justice always triumphs in the DPRK. It's a moral symphony where humor itself is ideological. Nothing is random. Everything is designed to reinforce faith in the system. But beneath that carefully constructed stage, the private world tells a different story. Inside homes, people whisper. They laugh quietly at the absurdity of life. A mother might tell her children a forbidden joke about Kim Jong-un's hairstyle, only to shush them immediately after, terrified that a neighbor might overhear. There is no privacy in laughter, no sanctuary. Even in homes, portraits of the leaders hang on the walls, portraits that must be kept spotless, treated as sacred. To laugh too loudly in their presence can be considered blasphemy. One defector recalled her father being taken away for what seemed like nothing. He had made a mild joke at work, comparing the endless propaganda songs to lullabies that never let anyone sleep. Someone reported him. Days later, security agents arrived. They didn't shout, they simply asked him to come for a short conversation. He never returned. For the family, laughter became synonymous with loss. From then on, silence replaced joy. This is the anatomy of control in North Korea. It begins not with guns, but with fear disguised as respect. People learn early that emotional expression is dangerous. Children are told stories of heroes who died for smiling at the wrong time, or who were re-educated for failing to cry during national mourning. These stories are not just warnings, they are lessons. They shape the psychological architecture of obedience. At schools, humor is redefined. Teachers perform songs about Kim Jong-un's childhood, stories of his cleverness and strength. Students are expected to laugh when the teacher laughs, to mirror joy as a collective performance. If one child hesitates, they are corrected publicly. Do you not love the leader? The teacher might ask. That single question carries 1,000 unspoken threats. Over time, laughter becomes mechanical. The muscle remembers the movement, but not the meaning. Adults continue the habit, laughing when expected, staying silent when unsure. The result is a nation that seems cheerful on television, but eerily hollow in person. For outsiders who visit Pyongyang, this hollow laughter is one of the most unsettling experiences. Tourists are often taken to amusement parks or bowling alleys filled with smiling citizens. The laughter seems real at first, but watch closely. The smiles never reach the eyes. The moments are staged, orchestrated for foreign consumption. The visitors are meant to think they're happy here, but every camera angle, every sound of joy is arranged by minders. After the tourists leave, the laughter fades like smoke. True humor, the kind that exposes truth through irony, does not exist in North Korea. Irony itself is dangerous because it questions authority. Satire, sarcasm, parody, these are languages of freedom, and freedom is the regime's greatest enemy. In 2015, North Korean officials even lodged a formal complaint after an international comedy sketch mocked Kim Jong-un. They called it an act of war. Imagine fearing a joke so deeply that it becomes a military matter. That is the power of laughter in a dictatorship. It reveals what power cannot tolerate: ridicule. The state's obsession with controlling humor is rooted in history. During Kim Il-sung's rule, laughter was used as a tool to unify the people against common enemies. Propaganda films portrayed the South as pitiful and the Americans as foolish. People were encouraged to laugh at the stupidity of the outside world. But when famine hit in the 1990s, what the regime calls the arduous march, laughter disappeared. Millions starved, and making jokes about food or shortages became acts of resistance. Some did quietly as a way to cope. "We called it the comedy of hunger," one survivor said. "We laughed at ourselves because crying didn't fill our stomachs." That period created a strange duality. Laughter as both survival and sin. For many, humor became a shield, a way to preserve sanity. For the regime, it was a threat to order. In labor camps, where prisoners work from dawn until night, laughter is forbidden. Guards punish even smiles, claiming it shows disrespect for the system. Defectors tell of prisoners who tried to lighten the misery by whispering jokes. If caught, they were beaten, sometimes executed. One former prisoner said that a fellow inmate was killed after joking that Kim Jong-il should send us some sunlight if he's the son of our nation. The irony was fatal. The punishment for such acts isn't just physical, it's social. When someone is accused of laughing inappropriately or mocking the regime, their entire family is often punished. This is called guilt by association, a part of a system known as Yonjwaje, which holds 3 generations responsible for one person's crime. It ensures silence. It ensures that even if someone dares to laugh, no one else ever will. Yet, the irony remains. The same state that forbids laughter uses it constantly in its propaganda. Footage of Kim Jong-un often shows him laughing, surrounded by officials echoing his joy. His smile is portrayed as divine, his humor as a sign of intelligence. When he laughs, the nation laughs with him, not because they want to, but because they must. His laughter becomes a symbol of power, a reminder that only one man in the entire country is allowed to be happy without consequence. Even the language of humor is controlled. In North Korean dialect, certain phrases have been erased or replaced. Words associated with mockery or jest are rarely used. The cultural vocabulary of laughter has been stripped down, replaced with slogans. Where humor once expressed humanity, now only reverence remains. Still, deep in the underground markets, humor evolves like a secret language. Traders use code phrases to disguise jokes. For instance, when mocking propaganda slogans, they replace "Let's build socialism with our own strength" with "Let's eat with our own strength," a grim satire on starvation. It's dark humor, born from suffering, but it's also resistance. Every whispered laugh is a declaration, we still exist. In the countryside, where surveillance is lighter, people sometimes gather in small circles at night, sharing rice wine and hushed laughter. They tell old folk tales, ones that existed long before the Kim dynasty. These stories carry hidden criticism, kings who think they're gods, rulers who mistake flattery for love. The listeners understand the subtext, but no one dares say it aloud. The laughter that follows is quiet, trembling, like the flutter of wings in a storm. It's in these moments between fear and humor that the soul of the nation survives. Psychologists who've studied North Korean defectors describe laughter as one of the last human instincts to return after escape. Many forget how to laugh genuinely. They smile awkwardly as though waiting for permission. Some cry when hearing laughter for the first time abroad. Because laughter in North Korea isn't just suppressed, it's stolen. It's taken from people at birth and replaced with performance. Control of humor is control of truth. And truth, in a place built on lies, is the ultimate threat. The regime knows this. That's why it monitors comedians, censors jokes, and punishes laughter that doesn't fit the script. The purpose isn't only to prevent dissent, it's to reshape reality itself. If people can't laugh honestly, they stop noticing absurdity. If they stop noticing absurdity, they stop questioning it. Imagine an entire nation where irony has been erased, where people don't even realize how strange their lives have become. That's how control sustains itself, not just through fear, but through the gradual death of humor. Yet, the human instinct persists. When defectors meet abroad, they often laugh uncontrollably. They laugh at their past fears, at the absurd rituals they once took seriously. One woman described laughing so hard that she couldn't breathe. "It was like emptying a poison I didn't know was inside me," she said. There is something profoundly revealing in that. Laughter, once weaponized by the regime, becomes liberation for those who escape. The forbidden sound becomes a symbol of rebirth. But inside North Korea, the tension continues. The regime tightens control, surveillance grows, informants multiply. Even laughter becomes data. Artificial intelligence now monitors facial expressions in some workplaces, part of a new loyalty evaluation system. The goal is to measure emotional conformity, to quantify obedience. It's Orwellian but real. The state has learned to digitize fear, so when you ask, what happens when you laugh in North Korea? The answer is both simple and tragic. You risk everything, but perhaps in a strange way that risk also reveals the last unbroken part of the human spirit. Because somewhere, even now, behind drawn curtains, someone in North Korea is laughing softly, at a shared secret, at the absurdity of power, at the fact that they're still alive. It's forbidden, fleeting, fragile. But in that quiet moment, for the first time, they are free. The deeper you go into the soul of North Korea, the more you begin to understand that laughter isn't simply discouraged, it is dismantled, broken down, rewired, replaced with obedience. By the time a citizen reaches adulthood, the ability to laugh freely has been eroded by decades of conditioning. What remains is a strange echo of joy, hollow, automatic, state-approved. And yet, beneath that echo, somewhere deep and unreachable, something human still stirs. There is a man in Chongjin, a steelworker in his 40s, whose name cannot be spoken aloud. At night, when the electricity cuts out, as it often does, he sits by a candle and tells his wife stories. Most of them are harmless, drawn from official tales of patriotic workers. But sometimes, when the wind howls outside and he feels sure the neighbors are asleep, he lets slip a joke. A quiet, dangerous thing. Perhaps it's about the ministry official who weighs less every week, despite his position in the food distribution department, or the absurdity of being told they live in the richest country on earth while their bellies twist in hunger. His wife covers her mouth to hide a smile. For a moment the room feels warmer. Then they fall silent, as if afraid that their joy has left a scent the authorities might track. That's how people live here, with fear of laughter itself. For the North Korean regime, the destruction of joy is not an accident. It is strategy. Fear is the architecture of control, and laughter cracks its foundations. Every spontaneous moment of humor carries the potential to unite, to question, to remember. The government knows that laughter connects people horizontally, while their power depends on everything flowing vertically, downward, from the supreme leader to his subjects. In that structure, no two citizens are supposed to share an emotion that does not pass through him first. This is why even friendship is dangerous in North Korea. Real connection breeds loyalty that competes with the party. So the state controls not only what people laugh at, but who they laugh with. In workplaces, the Inminban, the neighborhood watch groups, assign comrades who monitor emotional behavior. They note whether you appear cheerful when you should be solemn, or solemn when you should be cheerful. These notes can become reports. Reports can become disappearances. In the countryside, laughter sometimes survives in hidden ways. Farmers working in collective fields whisper small jokes under their breath, old folk humor that once celebrated survival and mocked fate. The rice listens, they say, so be careful. It might report you. Even in their irony there is fear. The rice, the walls, the air, everything has ears. Defectors often describe how the absence of laughter becomes physical. The body forgets the rhythm. One woman, who escaped through the Tumen River into China, said that for years she would smile but not laugh, as though her muscles didn't remember how. When I first heard someone laugh freely in China, she said, I thought they were insane. Then I realized it was me who was broken. It's not just the people who lose laughter, it's the land. The entire country seems haunted by silence. In Pyongyang's grand plazas, where statues of the Kims tower above, the only sounds are the echoes of footsteps, the hum of distant traffic, and the faint drone of patriotic music. Even the children play without shouting too loud. Tour guides tell visitors that this is the discipline of a civilized society. In truth, it's the fear of standing out. Yet there are moments, rare and dangerous, when the mask slips. In a textile factory near Hamhung, workers were once gathered to watch a film about Kim Il-sung's benevolent inspection of a factory decades earlier. The film showed him examining a machine that immediately broke in his hands. The audience froze, unsure if they should laugh or stay silent. Then an older woman, exhausted and half-starved, burst into laughter she couldn't control. The sound echoed off the walls. Others joined her, at first nervously, then uncontrollably. For a few minutes, the entire room erupted in wild, genuine laughter. They weren't laughing at the leader. They were laughing at themselves, at their hunger, at the insanity of it all. It was release. It was rebellion. The next day, the factory was closed. The woman disappeared. The others were interrogated. Some were sent to Kwanliso, political prison camps. No one ever spoke of it again. Inside those camps, laughter is erased completely. Prisoners labor from before sunrise to after sunset. Guards beat them for slowing down. Food is measured in spoonfuls. Hope is rationed like oxygen. Laughter is forbidden, one former prisoner said, because laughter means you are still alive. There were moments, though, when the absurdity of pain itself became unbearable. Prisoners would smirk at the slogans painted on walls. Our leader is our light, while digging trenches in the dark. The guards noticed and punishment followed, but even as they were beaten, some could not stop the trembling of their lips. That too was rebellion. The human brain needs laughter to survive despair. In North Korea, despair is everywhere. Famine, fear, endless obedience. So people develop hidden ways to cope. They mock silently. They create private metaphors. They tell their children bedtime stories with coded humor, the fox who pretends to be a lion, the bird who sings too loud. These stories carry secret meaning, teaching courage through irony. And yet even this secret laughter is fragile. It exists under constant threat of extinction. The regime knows that emotional suppression is power. From birth, citizens are trained not to express independent emotion. Babies are taught to clap to the leader's image before they can speak. Students memorize songs praising him before learning arithmetic. Soldiers march not with joy, but with synchronized shouting. And when the regime wishes to display happiness, it orders mass laughter. You can see it in state television broadcasts, entire audiences laughing in perfect rhythm as Kim Jong-un tours a factory, his smile wide and triumphant. The laughter is deafening, but empty. It's the sound of a nation pretending. Some defectors recall how surreal these moments felt. When you hear thousands of people laugh together like that, one said, you feel you must join in or die. It's like the laughter is hunting you. There is a phenomenon psychologists call emotional dissonance, the gap between what one feels and what one must display. In North Korea, that dissonance is permanent. Imagine living your entire life pretending to laugh at things you don't find funny, pretending to cry for people you don't love, pretending to be moved by speeches that mean nothing. Over time, reality itself blurs. The line between acting and living disappears. That's the true cruelty of the regime. Not that it forbids laughter, but that it teaches people to fake it until they forget what it ever meant. And yet, despite everything, laughter still finds a way. Like water seeping through cracks in stone, it survives where no one expects it. Among smugglers trading Chinese goods on the border, jokes about the absurd bureaucracy circulate in whispers. Among soldiers stationed in remote outposts, stories about incompetent officers spread quietly at night. Even children, in the privacy of play, create small acts of rebellion, mimicking their teachers' patriotic voices, laughing at the exaggerated gestures used in propaganda films. Their laughter is innocent but revolutionary, a reminder that humanity is stubborn. For the state, such moments are poison. The government combats them with mandatory self-criticism sessions. Every week, citizens must gather and confess their ideological errors. They report each other for improper thoughts. Sometimes someone will mention having laughed too much at an inappropriate moment. The confession is meant to cleanse them, to reaffirm loyalty. But deep down, these rituals create something else, an awareness that even laughter can be sin. And yet, in that awareness, seeds of doubt are planted. Once a person realizes that laughter must be confessed, they also realize something profound. The regime fears it. Why would power fear laughter unless it revealed a weakness? It is this realization, small, dangerous, unstoppable, that begins to spread in the minds of the oppressed. Each forbidden smile, each stifled giggle becomes a tiny rebellion against the machinery of control. When defectors recount their journeys, the memories that haunt them most are often not of starvation or violence, but of silence. "We never laughed," one said. "We didn't know how." And then she added something strange. "The first time I heard people laughing freely after I escaped, I thought the sound was holy." There's a haunting truth in that. Laughter in North Korea has become sacred because it is forbidden. It carries weight, meaning, defiance. To laugh freely, there is to reclaim your soul. Sometimes, when the moon is high and the city quiet, someone dares to risk it. A family sharing stolen rice wine in their apartment might whisper a joke about the latest propaganda broadcast. A husband might imitate the pompous tone of a party official. The wife covers her mouth. Their child giggles softly. It's reckless. It's dangerous. But for that brief instant, they feel human again. Then silence returns. The laughter fades into the walls. But its echo lingers in their hearts like a secret promise. One day we will laugh without fear. In a land where joy is treason, every quiet chuckle is a revolution waiting to happen. And the regime knows it. That is why it tries to crush the instinct itself, to erase the sound, the thought, the memory of laughter. Because laughter cannot be censored, it can only be destroyed. And yet, even the most total control cannot extinguish the human need to laugh. It lives in the marrow of being, waiting for the day it will be free again. There is a part of Pyongyang that foreigners are never shown at night. Beyond the immaculate boulevards, Past the marble monuments and the endless portraits of smiling leaders, there are neighborhoods that don't glow with light, but flicker, dimly, intermittently, like the pulse of something barely alive. It is there, behind drawn curtains and faded posters of national glory, that North Koreans sometimes dare to laugh, quietly, secretly, not at the leader, not at the world, but at the absurdity of being alive in a country where even happiness is contraband. These are not the images the regime wants you to see. The official North Korea, the one broadcast to the world, is full of laughter. Smiling workers, laughing children, jubilant dancers twirling in unison during state parades. It is a spectacle, carefully choreographed and polished to perfection. The cameras linger on faces radiating devotion. They call it the people's joy. But if you slow the footage down, you can see it, the stiffness at the corners of mouths, the fear in the eyes. It is the laughter of survival, not joy. Behind that facade, a parallel world exists, a hidden network of emotions, small rebellions, and secret humor that thrives beneath the regime's watchful eye. It's a world built on risk and whispers, a fragile underground humanity that the government spends every waking moment trying to erase. It begins, as so many forbidden things do, with the Jangmadang, the black markets that sprang up after the famine of the 1990s. These markets saved countless lives and introduced something even more subversive than food: information, smuggled radios, Chinese USB drives, DVDs of South Korean dramas. And hidden among those dramas were comedies, shows filled with laughter so wild and free that it didn't seem real to North Korean eyes. For the first time, people heard laughter unchained by fear. A different kind of sound, one that wasn't synchronized or staged. It was messy, spontaneous, human. For many, it was the sound of another universe. Some wept hearing it, others became addicted to it. They watched these shows in secret, hiding them behind fake DVD covers labeled Revolutionary Film Collection or study materials for the great leader's teachings. In the dim light of smuggled screens, families would sit in silence, holding their breath as laughter erupted from a South Korean sitcom. And then, cautiously, they'd let out a small laugh themselves. It wasn't just entertainment, it was rebellion in its purest form. To laugh at something not blessed by the regime was to declare, even if only in a whisper, "I am still human." These hidden comedies became emotional contraband. Traders who smuggled them risked execution. Yet they continued, because the demand was insatiable. For many, these shows were windows into a world that still remembered joy. They revealed something the regime could never allow its citizens to believe, that laughter could be innocent and life could be light. But the government fought back. In 2013, a new wave of surveillance began. The Ministry of State Security deployed mobile inspection units equipped with random home checks. They looked for illegal media, for laughter that didn't fit the state's script. People were caught smiling at the wrong time, reacting to the wrong sound. In one case, an entire family was sent to a re-education camp because a neighbor reported hearing them laughing loudly during a power outage. The assumption was clear. They couldn't possibly be laughing at the dark, so they must have been laughing at the government. This paranoia runs deep. Humor, in most nations, is a mirror. It reflects society's flaws, exposes its hypocrisies, and reminds people of their shared humanity. In North Korea, mirrors are forbidden. Only portraits of leaders are allowed to reflect your image. Foreign journalists who've entered Pyongyang with government escorts often describe moments when they've made accidental jokes. Simple, harmless humor that drew no reaction from their guides. They didn't even smile, one said. It was as if they didn't understand what laughter was supposed to do. It's not that they lacked a sense of humor, it's that humor, as they knew it, could only exist inside the boundaries of loyalty. In certain elite circles, however, laughter still flows, but it is a privilege, not a right. Within the hidden compounds where party officials and high-ranking military officers live, parties take place. Expensive liquor, foreign cigarettes, music from abroad. Here, laughter is allowed, even encouraged. But it serves a different purpose. It reaffirms the hierarchy. When a powerful man laughs, everyone else must laugh louder. When he grows quiet, Silence must return instantly. It's not joy. It's obedience in rhythm. The most surreal moments come during performances staged for Kim Jong-un himself. Musicians, actors, comedians, each rehearses for weeks, knowing that a single misstep could end their careers or lives. When Kim laughs, cameras capture it as divine approval. State media later broadcasts his laughter across the nation, describing it as the roar of happiness that shakes the heavens. Citizens are expected to laugh along at home, even though they never heard the joke. The leader's laughter becomes a symbol of stability, proof that he is human enough to joke, godly enough to decide when others can. And yet the regime's obsession with showing his laughter betrays a hidden fear. It knows that real laughter, the kind that erupts from truth, is uncontrollable. And in a dictatorship, anything uncontrollable is dangerous. There's a story told by a defector who once worked as an interpreter for foreign visitors. During a banquet, a visiting diplomat accidentally made a pun in English that the North Korean officials didn't understand. When the interpreter explained it quietly to Kim's aide, the aide forced a laugh, loud, exaggerated, and contagious. Within seconds, the entire table was laughing hysterically at a joke no one actually found funny. Later, the interpreter realized that no one had dared to stop because they didn't know how long they were supposed to laugh. Even humor had become a performance of fear. Outside the capital, in villages far from the watchful eyes of the elite, humor takes on a darker tone. Farmers joke about hunger using grim irony. "We are the fattest people on earth," they say, "because we are full of the leader's love." They say it softly, glancing around before smiling. These jokes are not meant to amuse, they are meant to survive. In a place where words can kill, laughter becomes a form of camouflage. Some of these whispered jokes have traveled through generations. During Kim Il-sung's reign, people joked that electricity is so loyal to the party that it only appears when ordered. Under Kim Jong-il, the famine era inspired bitter sarcasm. "We don't eat meat anymore because we're evolving into higher beings." And under Kim Jong-un, a new generation whispers, "We are the happiest people in the world because we are not allowed to be sad." Each of these jokes, small and quiet as they are, represents the beating heart of resistance. They are proof that beneath the layers of propaganda and fear, the human mind still refuses to surrender its ability to see absurdity. And where there is absurdity, there is awareness. Awareness is the first crack in control. In secret border regions near China, laughter sometimes bursts free. Traders who deal with smuggled goods gather at night, drinking cheap alcohol and swapping stories. There, for a few hours, the rules loosen. They mock officials. They mimic propaganda speeches. They tell jokes about Kim Jong-un's weight or his obsession with cheese. The laughter is dangerous yet unstoppable. Each person knows that if caught, the punishment would be severe. But still, they risk it. Because in that laughter lies something they cannot live without: freedom, even if only for the length of a breath. One trader told of an encounter that captures this contradiction perfectly. A local security officer, known for his cruelty, once joined their circle after too much drink. At first he barked orders, reminding everyone of his rank. But as the night grew late and the liquor loosened his tongue, he began telling jokes about his own superiors. Everyone froze, unsure if it was a trap. Then cautiously they laughed. For a brief moment, the lines between oppressor and oppressed blurred. When morning came, he warned them never to speak of it again. But that night became legend, a forbidden memory of shared humanity in a place where such things aren't supposed to exist. Even in the regime's hidden world of luxury, where the ruling elite enjoy imported wines and private cinemas, laughter remains conditional. The leader's inner circle is rumored to have comedians who perform exclusively for them, carefully crafting humor that flatters without offending. One performer, now exiled, recalled the suffocating terror of performing in front of Kim Jong-il. "When he smiled, we lived another day," he said. "When he didn't, we didn't sleep." This is the anatomy of a dictatorship's laughter. It flows downward, never upward. Those at the bottom are not allowed to laugh at those above them, but those at the top may laugh at everyone else. It's a pyramid of power built on forced emotion, and yet cracks appear even here. Some of the elite, those who travel abroad or interact with foreigners, begin to see the absurdity of their own lives. They laugh privately at the doublethink, at the rituals they perform daily. One defector, once a diplomat, confessed that the first real laughter he ever experienced was not at a joke, but at realization. The realization that he had spent his entire life pretending to believe. It was laughter mixed with tears, he said. The kind you cannot stop because you've finally gone mad from pretending. In North Korea, to laugh is to risk exposure, but to never laugh is to lose the will to live. Between these two extremes, people walk a tightrope every day, balancing fear and humanity. If you ever stand in Pyongyang's Kim Il-sung Square, surrounded by the marble grandeur and the sound of patriotic songs, look closely at the faces. You might catch it, the faintest trace of something almost invisible, a twitch of a smile, a spark of irony, a momentary flicker of awareness. It disappears as quickly as it comes, but it's there, hidden beneath layers of silence, beneath years of control. The small, unkillable seed of laughter that no regime, however powerful, can completely erase. Imagine walking through Pyongyang after midnight. The streets are empty, silent except for the distant hum of electricity running through the few buildings still lit. The statues of the leaders loom above everything, carved into permanence, watching over a city that pretends to sleep. Somewhere behind those walls, in an apartment with no curtains, a family whispers softly. The father tells a small joke, something harmless, something simple. And for just a few seconds, the quiet is broken by laughter. It's low, careful, almost invisible. But in that sound, the entire country briefly feels alive. That is what laughter has become here, a ghost, a memory of freedom wandering through a land where emotion is policed more thoroughly than crime. In the West, laughter is spontaneous, a spark of connection, the collapse of pretense. In North Korea, it is both forbidden and manufactured, a paradox that defines the very soul of the regime. Here, laughter belongs to power. The leader's smile is the nation's sunlight. His amusement is the people's command. And yet, the very thing they try to own, human joy, always slips through their fingers. Over decades, the regime has tried to erase the unpredictability of laughter by scripting it. You can see it in the eyes of citizens during parades, the smiles that don't reach their hearts, the synchronized cheers that sound like chanting. These are not celebrations, they are performances of loyalty. When thousands laugh together on cue, it's not because they find anything funny, it's because they know silence would be worse. In that forced noise lies the quietest truth, that no one in North Korea is laughing for themselves anymore. And yet, even as the system tightens its grip, laughter refuses to die. It hides in secret markets, in whispered jokes, in the corners of children's games. It's a resistance that cannot be organized, but also cannot be stopped. Because laughter, unlike ideology, cannot be taught, it can only be felt. And feelings once awakened can never fully be erased. Defectors often say that the first time they truly understood freedom was not when they crossed the border, but when they laughed. In China, in South Korea, in shelters run by NGOs, wherever they ended up, the first real laugh came like a shock. It wasn't planned, it wasn't controlled, it burst out of them, shaking their bodies, confusing their minds. One woman described it as painful joy. She had spent so many years repressing sound that when laughter returned, it felt like her lungs were burning. Another said she covered her mouth instinctively, expecting punishment. When none came, she began to cry. That's what happens when you live in a world where laughter is guilt. You forget that it's also grace, and so the forbidden laugh becomes a kind of rebirth. To laugh without fear is to reclaim something stolen, to take back the parts of yourself that the regime told you didn't exist. In that moment, defectors say, they feel both human and whole again. But back inside the borders, in that sealed country, laughter remains both weapon and wound. The government's fear of it reveals a deeper truth, that control is fragile. Power that depends on silence can be undone by sound. One uncontained laugh can unravel the illusion of unity, can remind those listening that fear is not natural, that obedience is not sacred. That is why the regime punishes it so brutally. They understand what most of the world forgets. Laughter is freedom made audible. Imagine a day in the near future, When the loudspeakers that fill every street fall silent, when no one is forced to chant, when people gather not for parades but for conversation. In that future, perhaps someone will tell the story of the first person who dared to laugh again openly. It will spread quietly at first, then uncontrollably. It will echo in classrooms, in factories, in churches long buried underground. That laughter will not be political. It will be human, and it will mean that the spell has finally broken. Until then, the contrast remains between the laughter of power and the laughter of defiance, between the image the regime broadcasts and the reality it hides. The state's propaganda still shows Kim Jong-un smiling as missiles launch behind him, soldiers applauding his every word, women giggling as he visits a farm or a factory. Those images are designed to project vitality, to say our leader laughs, therefore we are strong. But the truth behind them is emptiness. His laughter is not shared, it is worshipped, and worship is not joy. Even in those carefully staged moments, the regime cannot escape irony. They build an empire of seriousness, yet fill it with the sound of artificial laughter. They try to control emotion, but emotion slips through every crack. They can imprison a man for laughing at the wrong time, but they cannot make his heart believe that silence is peace. They can outlaw jokes, but they cannot outlaw the thought that makes a joke funny, the recognition of truth. North Korea's tragedy is not only the famine, the oppression, the isolation. It's the theft of laughter. The loss of something so ordinary, so universal, that its absence changes what it means to be human. In that sense, laughter has become the country's truest mirror. It reveals who has power and who is still capable of feeling alive beneath it. To understand North Korea is to understand this silence. It is to see that behind every image of smiling citizens, there lies exhaustion. Behind every laugh on television, there lies fear. The country has mastered the art of emotional choreography, making people feel one thing and display another. But beneath that performance, a quiet rebellion brews, one laugh at a time. The paradox of the regime's power is that it depends on pretending joy exists. The illusion must be maintained. The happy workers, the cheerful students, the endless parades of smiling faces. Without it, the world would see the truth. But within that illusion lies its own undoing. Because once a person learns to fake laughter, they also learn what real laughter feels like. And once they know the difference, the lie loses its strength. Maybe that is how freedom will come to North Korea. Not with an uprising or a war, but with something smaller, something softer. A moment when the fear of laughter finally dies, and people begin to laugh again. Not because they're told to, but because they can. There's a story that defectors often tell each other in the South. A story about a man who lived his entire life without ever laughing freely. After escaping, he watched a simple comedy, a child slipping on ice, harmless and silly, and he laughed so hard that he couldn't stop. He laughed until he collapsed on the floor, gasping for air, tears running down his face. When asked what was so funny, he said, "Nothing, everything, I'm just alive." That's what laughter means after you've lost it. It's proof of life. And maybe that's why the regime fears it so deeply. Because laughter is proof that no system, no propaganda, no surveillance can ever fully kill the human spirit. It's the sound of freedom breaking through walls, the echo of something eternal. So when you think of North Korea, don't just picture the soldiers marching, or the grand statues, or the endless silence. Picture the small hidden moments, the father whispering a joke to his daughter, the child giggling in the dark, the smuggler laughing softly at the absurdity of his own survival. Picture laughter moving quietly through the night, like a secret message passed from one soul to another, because one day, when the statues crumble and the loudspeakers rust, that sound, the forbidden laugh, will still remain. It will rise again uncontained and unstoppable, carried by millions of voices that have waited a lifetime to remember what it feels like to be free. And when that day comes, the world will finally hear it. The laughter of a people who lived in silence for too long, the laughter of North Korea reborn.